On this book, Who is This Jesus? A Story of Miracles, Max Lucado is the author. I'm going to read the editor's introduction on this book. There is hope in your difficult situation. Just for a moment, picture the worst day of your life. Remember any of the details? Where you were? Who was with you? What was said? How you felt? The planet Earth had a worst day too. But here's the interesting thing. That day didn't take God by surprise. He already knew what he intended to do. In fact, it was his plan all along to take that worst day of all and make it the best day of all. How did he do it? Well, doing impossible things has always been a part of God's resume. In this little book, author Max Lucado will take a closer look at the worst day that became the best day. And Max, being Max, he will do so from an unexpected angle. The fact is, when Jesus died and then came out of the grave 3 days later, it put every bad day you will ever have in a completely different light. If the blackest and most terrible day ever led directly to the most joyous and hope-filled day that could ever be, well then, maybe there is hope for the difficult situations you find yourself facing. One of the most encouraging things about the Bible is that it assumes we will have setbacks, heartaches, failures, mountain-sized disappointments, and great difficulties in the course of our lives. Then it meets us right where we are, wherever that might be, with the exact hope and help we've been longing for, but didn't think we could ever find. Hope in the best of times and the worst of times. Now imagine a lonely fugitive with a death sentence on his head, wrongly accused of crimes he never committed, forced to hide from authorities in the impenetrable darkness of a limestone cave. But then you don't have to imagine it, because it really happened. That was the story of David, a young army officer who aroused the king's jealousy and found himself running for his life for over 15 years. The book of Psalms records his heart's cry, where he writes, "When my spirit grows faint within me, it is you who know my way. No one is concerned for me. I have no refuge. No one cares for my life. I cry to you, O Lord. I say, you are my refuge." Psalms 142, verses 3 through 5. When David came to the very end of himself, the ragged, frayed, played out end of his hopes, on his face in a dark cave, he fell into an understanding that would keep him strong for the rest of his life. God was his refuge, his hiding place and his hope, no matter what happened to him, in life or in death. Many centuries later, a distressed, beat-up missionary named Paul arrived at the same conclusion with the same result. Listen to the words that he penned with a shaking hand. in a letter to friends. We don't want you in the dark, friends, about how hard it was when all this came down on us. It was so bad we didn't think we were going to make it. We felt like we had been sent to death row, that it was all over for us. As it turned out, it was the best thing that could have happened. Instead of trusting in our own strength or wits to get out of it, we were forced to trust God totally. Not a bad idea, since He's the God who raises the dead, and He did it, rescued us from certain doom, and He'll do it again, rescuing us as many times as we need rescuing. You'll find that letter in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 8 through 11. That's a really big idea in the Bible, from one cover to the other. God opens unseen doors in what we thought were dead ends. God yanks open curtains in dark rooms where we didn't even know there was a window. God takes terrible, intolerable, impossible situations and finds a way to walk His kids through the worst of them, leading them to surprising vistas and unexpected destinations. The Bible has examples of this on almost every page, but one tops them all. In fact, one story makes all those other stories of hope possible. Don't call it Easter unless you want to make every day Easter. This is about the one miracle that has opened the door for all miracles. John launches his gospel account before daylight, just as the first hint of gray has crept onto the eastern horizon. The first character he mentions is the mysterious Mary Magdalene, who finds her way through the darkness to the tomb of Jesus. Was she carrying a little oil lamp that cast shadows on the path? Were her eyes blurred with tears? Was she afraid of encountering those stern Roman soldiers who stood guard over the grave? Or was it her heart so torn by grief that she no longer cared what happened to her? There came a moment when she turned a corner and saw in that dim gray light what her eyes at first refused to believe. Did her hand tremble as she held up her little oil lamp? The soldiers were gone, and the tomb was wide open. A cavernous hole yawned before her, midnight black in those dark moments before dawn. There was no joy in this. Not yet. This was vandalism, a sacrilege, an unthinkable, unspeakable desecration, grave robbery. Someone had taken the body of her dead Lord. Someone had actually broken into his tomb and carried away his remains. For what purpose? To make a mockery of him? To heap further indignities on the corpse of this best of all man who had been so kind and good and true? Dropping the lamp, she began to run and run and run. She had to find Peter or John or both. They would know what to do. Did she pound on some door to awaken the men? Or had the disciples been keeping watch, perhaps sitting by the low coals of a fire that had burned all night long? Again, the Bible doesn't say. But can we imagine some outrage in Mary Magdalene's voice? They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him. Can be found in John 20, verse 2. It was a Sunday morning that would be, filled to the brim with drama, wonder, angels, consternation, weeping, and incredulous, almost uncontainable joy. But there was also controversy. The news that overwhelmed the followers of Jesus with such an overwhelming awe was the worst news possible for the Jewish leaders who thought they had dealt with the Nazarene and put him behind them once and for all. And what of the Roman soldiers who had been blasted off their feet by a powerful earthquake and the appearance of a mighty angel, bright as a lightning flash, who pushed back the stone that had covered the tomb? The Bible doesn't tell the story of any of these soldiers, what they thought, how they recovered from the shock of their lives, what they might have wondered in the hours and days that followed. It is one of those stories we may have to wait until heaven to ask. And yet, if the story could have been told, if the story had been told, it might have gone something like this.